Myself, Sri Balaji, Assistant Professor in the Department of Management Studies, Bharat Institute of Higher Education and Research. Here we are going to say about the topic business ethics, corporate social responsibilities, and governance. Characteristics of Indian culture. Many things can be included while describing the distinguishing characteristics of Indian culture. But it is a fact that India is an amalgamation of various thoughts and ideologies. It is very fast and vast and varied culture rich in knowledge, devotion deeds, emotions, and feeling. It is the broad mindedness of Indian culture that is assimilated all those characteristics features without any hesitation to which it was exposed from various other cultures and molded them in own way. India did not believe invasion or war to propagate its culture, religion, ideology, or any other thing. It treated all living creatures with same equality and compassion. Meaning, relevance, and features of the Competition Act 2002. In 1969, government has passed an act and it had given the name Monopoly and Restrictive Trade Practices (MRTP). It became popular with the name of MRTP 1969. This act has many provisions to control the monopoly and to promote the competition. It has defined RTP and also explained the powers of MRTP Commission. But its scope was very narrow and Government of India has made new act called Competition Act 2002 on the place of MRTP Act 1969. After this MRTP Act 1969 was fully repealed. Explanation of Competition Act 2002. Competition Act 2002 states that Indian traders must not do any activity for promoting monopoly. If they will do any activity in the form of production, distribution, price fixation, or increasing monopoly, and this will be against this act and will be void. This act is very helpful for increasing good competition in Indian economy. Under this act, following are restricted practice and these practices are stopped by this act. Price fixing. If two or more supplier fixes the same price for supply the goods, then it will be restricted practice. Bid ragging. If two or more supplier exchange sensitive information of bid, then it will also be restricted practice and against competition. Resale price fixation. If a producer sells goods to the distributors on the condition that he will not sell any other price which is not fixed by producer. Exclusive dealing. This is also restricted practice if a distributor purchases the goods on the condition that supplier will not supply the goods any other distributor. Above all activities promote monopoly. So under Competition Act, these are void and action of competition. Commission will not entertain by civil court. Need for CSR. Corporate social responsibility, CSR, promotes a vision of business accountability to a wide range of stakeholders. Besides shareholders and investors, key areas of concerning are environmental protection and the well-being of employees, the community and civil society in general, both now and in the future. The concept of CSR is underpinned by the idea that corporations can no longer act as isolated economic entities operating in detachment from broader society. Traditional views about competitiveness, survival, and profitability are being swept away. Some of the drivers pushing business towards CSR. The shrinking role of government. In the past, governments have relied on legislation and regulation to deliver social and environmental objectives in the business sector. Shrinking government resources coupled with a distrust of regulations has led to exploration of voluntary and non-regulatory initiatives instead. Demands for greater disclosure. There is a growing demand for corporate disclosure from stakeholders, including customers, suppliers, employee communities, investors, and activist organizations. Increased customer interest. There is evidence that the ethical conduct of companies exerts a growing influence on the purchasing decisions of customers. In a recent survey by Environmentics International, more than 1 in 5 consumers reported having either rewarded or punished companies based on the perceived social performance. Competitive labor markets. Employees are increasingly looking beyond paychecks and benefits and seeking out whose philosophies and operating practices match their own principles. In order to hire and retain skilled employees, companies are being forced to improve working conditions. Suppliers relations. As stakeholders are becoming increasingly interested in business affairs, many companies are taking steps to ensure that their partners conduct themselves in a socially responsible manner. Some are introducing codes of conduct for their suppliers to ensure that other company policies or practices do not tarnish their reputation. Positive outcome of social responsibility. Some of the positive outcomes that can arise when businesses adapt a policy of social responsibility, company benefits, benefits to the community and the general public, environmental benefits, company benefits, improved financial performance, lower operating costs, enhanced brand image and reputation, increased sales and customer loyalty, greater productivity and quality, more ability to attract and retain employees, reduced regulatory oversight, access to capital, workforce diversity, product safety and decreased liability, benefits to the community and the general public, charitable contributions, employee voluntary programs, corporate involvement in community education, employment, and homelessness programs, product safety and quality, environmental benefits, greater material recyclability, better product durability and functionality, greater use of renewable resources, integration of environmental management tools into business, plans including life cycle assessment and costing, environmental management standards and eco-labeling, challenges of corporate social responsibility, issues and challenges. The prime purpose of including CSR in corporate business is to make the corporate business activities as well as the corporate culture both sustainable in three ways: economic, social, and environmental. Paying equal amount of attention to all the three dimensions, but many companies think that corporate social responsibility is a much exterior part of the business, whereas most think it to be an irrelevant issue for the business, as satisfying their customer clients is more important for them. Inefficiency of the government. In the past, governments have relied only on legislation and regulation to deliver social and environmental objectives in the business sector, which has led to certain failed initiatives. Demands for greater disclosure. There is a growing demand for corporate disclosure from stakeholders, including customers, suppliers, employees, communities, investors, and activist organizations. Increased customer interest. It has been seen and proved through a survey conducted in the year 2002 in 25 countries by Environics International. It was found that more than one-third of surveyed consumers believed that large companies should do more than give money to solve problems. The same study found that almost 50% of consumers have considered punishing a company based on its social actions, and that nearly 30% have actually avoided a company for that reason. Further, it was proved that the ethical conduct of companies have growing influence on the purchasing decisions of customers. Increased pressure from the investors. Investors are changing the way they analyze companies' performance and are making decisions based on ethical concerns too. Change in employee behavior. Employees are increasingly looking beyond paychecks and benefits and seeking out employees whose operating practice match their own principles. In order to hire and retain skilled employees, companies are being forced to improve working conditions. Competition Act 2002. Meaning, relevance, and features of the Competition Act 2002. In 1969, government has passed an act and it has given the name Monopoly and Restrictive Trade Practices (MRTP). It became popular with the name of MRTP 1969. This act has many provisions to control the monopoly and to promote the competition. It has defined RTP and also explained the powers of MRTP Commission. But its scope was very narrow, and Government of India has made new act called Competition Act 2002 on the place of MRTP Act 1969. After this MRTP Act 1969 was fully repealed. Explanation of Competition Act 2002. Competition Act 2002 states that Indian traders must not do any activity for promoting monopoly. If they will do any activity in the form of production, distribution, price fixation for increasing monopoly, and this will be against this act and will be void. This act is very helpful for increasing good competition in Indian economy. Under this act, following are restricted practices, and these practices are stopped by this act: price fixing, bid raising, resale price fixation, exclusive dealing. Five major systems with relevance to managerial decisions. Managers should use all five systems to think through the consequences of our actions on multiple dimensions. Eternal law. Moral standards are given in an eternal law, which is revealed in scripture or apparent in nature, and then interpreted by religious leaders or humanist philosophers. The belief is that everyone should act in accordance with the interpretation. Utilitarianism, a teleological theory, moral standards are applied to the outcome of an action or decision. The principle is that everyone should act to generate the greatest benefits for the largest number of people. Differs from the economic concept of cost-benefit analysis in that the distribution of the cost and benefit has to be included as well. Utilitarianism fails because we can probably all agree that there are some actions that are simply wrong, despite great apparent net benefits for a huge majority. Universalism, a deontological theory, the reverse of teleological theory, moral standards are applied to the intention of an action or decision. The principle is that everyone should act to ensure that similar decisions would be reached by others. Given similar circumstances, immoral acts can be justified by persons who are prone to self-deception or self-importance, and there is no scale to judge between wills. Distributive justice. Moral standards are based upon the primacy of a single value, which is justice. Everyone should act to ensure a moral equitable distribution of benefits. For this promotes individual self-respect, which is essential for social cooperation, dependent upon acceptance of the proportion that an equitable distribution of benefits ensures social cooperation. Contributive liberty. Moral standards are based upon the primacy of a single value, which is liberty. Everyone should act to ensure greater freedom of choice. For this promotes market exchange, which is essential for social productivity, dependent upon the acceptance of the proportion that a market system of exchange ensures social productivity. Ethics analyzes Osmer model. Managers decision checklist. First one, what are the best economic alternatives are there? Second, what are the legal alternatives are available? Third, does a given decision result in greater benefits than damages for society as a whole, not just for our organization as part of that society? Is the decision self-serving, or would we be willing to have everyone else take the same action when faced within the same circumstance? We understand the need for social cooperation. Will our decision increase or decrease the willingness of others to contribute? We recognize the importance of personal freedom. Will our decision increase or decrease the liberty of others to act? Lastly, we know that the universe is large and infinite, while we are small and our lives are short. Is our personal improvement that important, measured against the immense of that other scale? The nature of ethics in management. Right and proper and fair are ethical terms. They express a judgment about our behavior towards other people that is felt to be just. We believe that there are right and wrong ways to behave towards others. Proper and improper actions, fair and unfair decisions. These beliefs are our moral standards of behavior. They reflect our sense of obligation to other people, our sense that it is better to help rather than to harm other people. Moral problems are truly managerial dilemmas. They present a conflict between an organization's economic performance measured by revenues, cost, and profits, and its social performance stated in terms of obligations to persons both within and outside the organization. Characteristics of moral problems in management. Most ethical decisions have extended consequences. Most ethical decisions have multiple alternatives. Most ethical decisions have mixed outcomes. Most ethical decisions have uncertain consequences. Most ethical decisions have personal implications. Common ethical workplace dilemmas. Most people spend a great deal of their weekdays at their offices or job sites. It's not surprising then that employees face ethical dilemmas there. Several of these dilemmas pop up on a regular basis with some common sense and a bit of analysis. Employees can resolve common workplace dilemmas without losing their jobs or bringing harm to their employer. Conducting personal business on company time. Because employees tend to spend so much of their workday hours on the job, they often are tempted to conduct personal business on company time. This can include setting up doctor's appointments on company phone lines, making vaccination reservations using their employees' computers and internet connections, or even making phone calls for a freelance side business while on company time. At first glance, this ethical dilemma is fairly clear. It is an abuse of your employer to conduct personal business on company time. But there are shades of gray here. What if your spouse calls to tell you that your children are ill? Is it okay for you to schedule a doctor's appointment? A good rule of thumb is for an employee to check with his manager or human resource supervisors to clarify what counts as an actionable offense in the company. Taking credit for others' work. Employees often work in teams to create marketing campaigns, develop new products, or fine-tune services, yet rarely does everyone in a group contribute equally to the final product. If three members of a five-person team did all the work, do those three members demand to receive proper credit while pointing out that two members of the team did not pull their weight? This is a thorny question. If employees single out their co-workers in a negative light, it could foment resentment. The same thing could happen, however, if all employees accept equal price even though only a select few did the real work. The best way to resolve this ethical dilemma is to not let it happen. Team members should insist that all employees perform specific tasks to help complete a project. Harassing behavior. Employees often don't know what to do if they see one of their co-workers harassing another employee, either mentally, sexually, or physically. Employees may worry for their jobs. If they attempt to report a supervisor for harassment, they may first that they will be labeled a troublemaker if they report co-workers who display inappropriate behavior toward other employees. The best way to solve this ethical dilemma rests with the staff members who developed the company employee handbook. It is their job to include specific language that spells out that employees won't be punished for reporting the harassing behavior or inappropriate actions of their co-workers. Ethics in practice. There are three aspects to ethical behavior in organizations: the development of the individual as an ethical person, the effect of the organization as an ethical or unethical environment, and the actions or procedures developed by the organization to encourage ethical behavior and discourage unethical behavior. Size of the organization and ethics. An organization structure is important to the study of business ethics. In a centralized organization, decision-making authority is concentrated in the hands of top-level managers and little authority is delegated to lower levels. Responsibility, both internal and external, rests with top management. This structure is especially suited for organizations that make high-risk decisions and whose lower-level managers are not highly skilled in decision-making. It is also suitable for organizations in which production processes are routine and efficiency is of primary importance. These organizations are usually extremely bureaucratic, and the division of labor is typically very well defined. Each worker knows his or her job and what is specifically expected, and each has a clear understanding of how to carry out assigned tasks. Centralized organizations stress formal rules, policies, and procedures backed up with elaborate control systems. Their codes of ethics may specify the techniques to be used for decision making. Because of the top-down approach and the distance between employee and the decision maker, centralized organizational structures can lead to unethical acts. If the centralized organization is very bureaucratic, some employees may behave according to the letter of the law rather than the spirit. In a decentralized organization, decision-making authority is delegated as far down the chain of command as possible. Such organizations have relatively few formal rules, and coordination and control are usually informal and personal. They focus instead on increasing the flow of information. As a result, one of the main strengths of decentralization organizations is their adaptability and yearly recognition of external change. With greater flexibility, managers can react quickly to changes in the ethical environment. Weakness of decentralized organization is the difficulty they have in responding quickly to changes in policy and procedures established by top management. In addition, independent profit centers within a decentralized organization may deviate from organizational objectives. Profitability and ethics. Many investors are paying closer attention to a company's ethics as well as their profits. These investors realize that a corporate focus on profits alone with single regard to ethical standards, conduct and enforcement may result in short-term revenue gain, but long-term profitability may be limited. In case like Enron, long-term viability is limited too. Consider this balance between profit and ethics to be ethical profitability. Well-balanced companies not only consistently reward owners, investors, and employees with profitable performance, they also genuinely focus on these five key areas. Leadership by example. The chasm between managing and managing well is wide and deep. To manage is to merely lead employees. To manage well is lead to employees effectively, ethically, and without arrogance. Company owners, executives, and managers must set the highest examples of attitude and conduct of their employees. Do what I say, not what I do, is a parental anachronism with no value in management. Company-wide ethical awareness. Most employees, when not at work, practice personal ethics in areas such as caring for others, being kind and honest, and not harming others. Do these same people, when they arrive at work, maintain the personal guidelines in the office? Ethical behavior includes demonstrating trustworthiness to managers and co-workers, respecting privacy and avoiding conflicts of interest. Ethics knows no time clock. Occasionally, classes can help by reminding employees of the simplicity of determining ethical behavior. In a nutshell, examine questionable action and speech and determine if it's harmful to yourself or another. If it is, avoid that behavior. Employees with any sort of religious background will recognize this ethic of reciprocity as familiar. Strong management of revenue generation and reporting. Corporate temptation to stretch ethical behavior in revenue generation and reporting is universal. From excessive cost cutting to expand short-term market share, to outright lies about revenue to positively affect stock price, it's easy to see why an otherwise intelligent, educated corporate officers can end up behind bars for condoning such behavior. To overcome these temptations, revenue-related managers must establish and maintain a firm stance on ethical marketing, advertising, selling, and reporting. This requires regular dissemination and enforcement of codes of conduct. High level of internal trust. The level of trust within a company should reflect the level of trust the company solicits from customers. If customers are encouraged to put their complete trust in the product or service, then company teams must do the same with each other. Management must guide this internal process. An increase in trust is a reduction in risk and uncertainty, which in turn will keep the revenue generation process flowing smoothly. Another advantage of running a high trust organization is removed internal flexibility and creativity. Instead of being constantly monitored, the person to whom a task is assigned can accomplish it the best way possible. The outcome is never in doubt because of the trust the team shares. Formal and active compliance program. Ethical profitability is far more than merely operating within the boundaries of the law. Legal compliance limits unethical behavior, but it does not define ethical behavior. An organizational ethics doctrine does have legal benefits. Properly written, published, and disseminated ethical codes will reduce corporate risk if an employee creates a criminal or civil problem because of poor ethical behavior. Even federal sentencing guidelines recommended lower fines if such violations occur, contrary to existence and enforcement of complaint codes. The true test of ethical profitability is whether or not the company is a positive example to its employees, to its customers, and even to other companies. Such companies practice the trusted form of leadership by example. They reach for a higher bar. Thank you.